In the 1950s, while studying in Colorado, I stumbled upon a hidden treasure. Traveling back and forth from California, I was always searching for new paths, chasing shortcuts and unexplored roads. That curiosity led me to a canyon so striking, so unexpected, it felt like a secret carved just for those willing to wander off the beaten path. What began as simple exploration became a discovery that has stayed with me for a lifetime. After the heartbreaking loss of Hollywood legend Robert Redford, his widow, Sybil Zagers, has finally broken her silence. In a revelation that has stunned fans worldwide, she opened up about Redford's final days, sharing intimate details of his private battles and the devastating moments that marked the end of his life. But what exactly did Sybil reveal? What truths about Redford's hidden struggles have remained buried until now? Behind the polished image of a Hollywood icon was a man shaped by pain, resilience, and tragedy. Robert Redford's journey was never easy. His youth was marked not by glamour, but by illness, anxiety, and the crushing loss of his mother. These hardships forged in him both strength and fragility, a duality that defined the man he became. At just 11 years old, his world was shaken when he was diagnosed with polio, a disease that terrified families across the globe. To hear the word polio in the 1940s was to feel a chill of fear, a shadow that loomed over every household. For Redford, it was not just a physical struggle but a haunting battle that would leave its mark for the rest of his life. Entire communities lived in fear as polio swept through households, leaving countless children paralyzed, some dependent on iron lungs to breathe, and others lost forever. For young Robert Redford, the nightmare began after what seemed like an ordinary swim in the sea. The illness crept in silently, stripping him of his strength and confining him to bed for weeks. Though his case was not as severe as many others, and he was spared the dreaded iron lung, the experience shook him deeply. The weakness, the exhaustion, and the shadow of what might have been etched a permanent scar on his memory. Even in recovery, the fear lingered, a haunting reminder of how close he had come to a very different fate. Years later, as Redford worked on projects connected to the Salk Institute, he often reflected on that narrow escape. Jonas Salk's groundbreaking vaccine felt to him like a miracle, a scientific breakthrough that arrived just in time to save future generations from the disease that had nearly stolen his own childhood. It represented a pivotal moment where hope overcame fear, holding deep significance for him. Polio also opened a new door for him. During his recovery, his mother proposed a trip to Yosemite National Park. She believed that the beauty of nature and the fresh air would help him view the world differently after his illness. This trip had a profound effect on him. Surrounded by the majesty of towering cliffs and flowing waterfalls, something stirred within him. The expansive mountains, meandering rivers, and vast skies resonated with him in a way he had never felt before. He no longer wished to simply admire nature from afar. He now yearned to fully immerse himself in it. This desire intensified during his 2 teenage summers working in Uz. Walking trails, climbing cliffs, and engaging with the natural surroundings became more than just a job. It felt as if the park had enchanted him, embedding itself into his very essence. It became a refuge he could revisit in his thoughts and memories. Years later, he would create a film about Yosemite, sharing how that first visit was when he truly recognized the beauty of the world. After regaining his strength and feeling curious about what life had in store, Redford embarked on his college journey through a baseball scholarship. With his remarkable academic achievements and athletic talents, he gained access to opportunities at the University of Colorado, suggesting a promising future ahead. Yet, despite being seen as a gifted and vibrant young man with numerous possibilities, he felt a lingering sense of discomfort within. The allure of college life, including parties, drinking, and the thrill of racing cars, constantly pulled at his inner self. In the early 1950s, Robert Redford came dangerously close to losing his life in a moment of reckless thrill. Behind the wheel, speeding at nearly 90 miles per hour on the road to Santa Barbara, he lost control and crashed. The wreck could have been fatal, yet fate spared him. He walked away without a scratch, but not without a haunting awareness of just how fragile life could be. That brush with death was only the beginning. At just 18 years old, Redford was struck by a loss far more devastating, the death of his mother, Martha. She had been his anchor, his source of strength, the one who believed in him without question. Her passing shattered him, leaving a wound that would never fully heal. Grief consumed him. Searching for escape, he turned to alcohol, and the spiral was swift and punishing. He lost his scholarship, his education, and the sense of direction that stability might have offered. What remained was a young man adrift, angry, restless, and broken. Yet even in her absence, Martha's belief in her son lingered like a quiet echo, a reminder that he still carried within him the strength she had seen all along. She had always believed in his rare potential, and in time, Robert Redford would come to realize she was right. That conviction, however, never stopped him from speaking his mind, even when it set him apart. When it came to politics, young Redford wanted nothing to do with it. He found it dull, uninspiring, and void of any real passion. Watching Richard Nixon rise in Los Angeles only confirmed his distaste. If Nixon represented politics, Redford thought, then it was a game of empty gestures and lifeless ambition. To him, it had no meaning, no soul, and certainly no place in his own life. But life has a way of changing perspectives. And for Redford, the awakening didn't come in America, it came thousands of miles away in Europe. At just 18, he crossed the Atlantic and set foot in a world that felt alive with possibility. In Paris, he walked cobblestone streets rich with history. In Florence, he stood in awe of art and culture that seemed timeless. Surrounded by beauty, by stories etched into stone and canvas, Redford felt his worldview begin to shift. He lived in a charming bohemian neighborhood in Paris where students from all areas gathered. These young people talked passionately about their countries, equality, and wars. Redford first felt unprepared during the Algerian War, when students engaged in heated discussions about politics, justice, and the responsibility of the government. He listened, but he told himself that he didn't know anything about the politics of his own nation, much less those of the world. He was mortified by this knowledge, but it also marked a new beginning for him. He began reading widely, delving into the writings of French and Italian authors in addition to American ones. He studied the viewpoints of both liberal and conservative newspapers. He gradually came to the conclusion that America was not the world center. Different nations had differing opinions about America, ranging from praise to disapproval. For him, this insight opened his eyes and changed politics from a remote and dull topic to a dynamic force influencing the development and collapse of societies. It became important to him. Redford's ideas were impacted by politics, yet he never wavered from the importance of art and storytelling. He believed that films might explore the human condition more deeply than political discourse. Redford made it clear that the Sundance Film Festival was for creative people, not politicians. He believed that rather than encouraging divisive debates and strife, Sundance served as a forum for stories that cut across boundaries and spoke to the core of mankind. Despite his best efforts to avoid politics, history nonetheless managed to pull him back into it. Redford felt strongly when Donald Trump entered the electoral sphere in 2015. At first, he thought that Trump's boldness and disobedience of conventions were upsetting the status quo. For a moment, it was refreshing to see someone challenging the status quo. But Redford's opinions changed with time. During Trump's presidency in 2018, he lost his sense of identity in his native country. The country he had loved seemed to have become a place of hatred, separation, and anger. While good-hearted voices appeared to disappear, authorities encouraged discrimination. For the first time, he publicly acknowledged that he felt estranged in the United States. He started speaking out more in 2019. He voiced worries about moral risks in addition to political ones. He felt that fundamental American principles, including freedom of the press, freedom of expression, the rule of law, and the pursuit of truth, were in danger. He was concerned that the harm would reach far into the nation's interior. He called for reform because he thought the current leadership threatened the survival of American values. During the 2020 election season, Redford took the unusual step of publicly disclosing his vote. He usually kept his political inclinations to himself, but this time he publicly supported Joe Biden. He believed that maintaining the essence of the country was more important than belonging to a certain political party. He thought back to his early years in the Franklin D. Roosevelt administration, when empathy and strong leadership coexisted. Roosevelt gave Americans optimism in the face of hardship and war. Redford wanted to see this balancing of attributes again. He was concerned that the country would suffer irreparable harm if Trump were to be re-elected. Redford maintained that the nation needs a leader who can bring people together, particularly in the face of a lethal virus, severe social divisions, and natural disasters. For him, Biden represented the opportunity for a new beginning. Redford steered clear of becoming a conventional politician throughout his career. Rather than writing legislation, running for office, or giving speeches in a leadership role, he opted to reflect, converse, and promote critical thinking. His understanding of politics was shaped by his own experiences and observations, travel, active listening, knowledge absorption, and social dynamics rather than by a desire for power. As time passed, he came to see politics as the engine of both personal and societal advancement, not merely as a means of governing. He was shaped by the events of his era, which included the struggles for environmental protection, civil rights, and the tumultuous periods of warring leadership. He was further reminded by each incident that politics was about more than just exercising power, it was also about caring for others. However, life does, in fact, come with challenges. What was in front of him? Let's get started. The loss of Robert Redford's family. Throughout his life, Robert Redford achieved great success and rose to fame. Below the surface, however, was a story of deep personal grief. During his childhood, his family went through tragic experiences that affected him deeply. When he was a teenager, tragedy came into his life in a way that was upsetting. He lost his mother Martha to septicemia, a dangerous bloodstream infection, when he was 18 years old. In the past, Martha had experienced difficult pregnancies, including the tragic loss of twin daughters who did not survive childbirth. She chose to give birth to the babies in spite of the warnings, which caused her health to deteriorate and ultimately resulted in her death. Robert could not handle the pain of losing Martha. She had always been his best ally, so when she was gone, he felt lost. Robert had already experienced the loss of a significant other at that time. He had experienced the grief of losing his twin sisters soon after birth and the loss of his favorite uncle during World War II when he was a child. Now that his mother was dead, he was grieving deeply at a time when most young people typically experience joy and excitement throughout their lives. At the University of Colorado, Robert was awarded a baseball scholarship, but his sadness caused him to become distracted. He resorted to heavy drinking instead of flourishing at baseball. His stay at university was brief and hectic. Some people believe he left on his own initiative, while others assert that he was compelled to do so. In any case, he felt disoriented and his academic life worsened. He decided to start over in Europe in the hopes of finding healing and a new direction in life after becoming desperate for a change and turning to art. Tragic events resurfaced years later when Robert and his first wife, Lola Van Vagenen, began a family of their own. Tragically, their son Scott died of sudden infant death syndrome only 2.5 months after his arrival in September 1959. Soon after starting their journey together, Robert and Lola, who were only 21 and 20 years old, were devastated by the loss of their child. There is an indescribable pain associated with losing a kid. This grief, Robert said, never really goes away. The memory of the lost kid never goes away, even as life goes on and additional children are born. Even though Lola, Shauna, James, and Amy had 3 additional children, Scott's absence was constant. James's early birth and persistent health problems presented further difficulties for his family. He was lovingly referred to as Jamie. As Jamie grew older, his health issues became more severe, and he was eventually diagnosed with a rare condition that affected his bile ducts and liver. To fight the disease, he received 2 liver transplants in 1993. Jamie demonstrated tenacity and resolve in the face of adversity, turning his problems into inspiration to assist others. He founded the James Redford Institute for Transplant Awareness to provide knowledge and support to people facing comparable health challenges. Jamie showed courage and compassion in all areas of his life, including pursuing a profession in movies and becoming an environmentalist. Another sorrow struck Robert in October 2020 when Jamie died of cancer at the age of 58. Losing 2 children over the course of a lifetime is an indescribable loss, and the anguish of losing one kid is unfathomable. Robert stayed calm and determined. He recognized that sadness is not something that can just go away, even in the face of many sufferings. It is still there, quietly showing itself in unforeseen circumstances, thoughts about idols, or in one's general perspective on life. His internal conflicts also impacted his marriage relationship. Robert's relationship with Lola was strained by his hectic work life and personal issues. The couple chose to split up in 1985, even though they had been married for 28 years. Nevertheless, they remained close even after their split, putting their kids' welfare first and valuing their previous love for one another. Let's examine his romantic life and the suffering it has caused him. A love that was lost. Throughout his life, Robert Redford had both highs and lows, with both private struggles hidden away and dazzling moments in the spotlight. His search for love, a journey filled with both joy and suffering, was one of the most poignant parts of his life. He met a happy college student named Lola Vanvren in 1958, while he was in his early 20s. Contrary to all expectations, they connected instantly. With only $300 saved and needing to rent a car for their wedding, they had very little. In spite of this, love and hope drove their voyage. Their life together as a newlywed couple was simple yet hopeful. They were ecstatic to have their first child, a son they named Scott, in 1959, while Robert committed himself to building a career in the theater. Sadly, their happiness was fleeting despite how strong it was. When baby Scott passed away from sudden infant death syndrome, it was a devastating blow. The young couple was devastated and felt guilty despite having no control over it. Both of their lives were permanently impacted by this loss, which remained an unhealed wound. But the passage of time continued. 3 more children were welcomed into Robert and Lola's home. Shauna was born in 1960. Then came their son David James, who went by James, in 1962. Finally, in 1970, Amy, their youngest child, was born. The sounds of laughing and the coziness of family life soon filled their home. Despite the busy schedule of having children, Robert's Hollywood career began to take off. He became a well-known and respected celebrity all over the world, but when the limelight faded, he finally found contentment in his main responsibilities as a husband and father. Robert and Lola have been together for over 20 years, raising kids, managing everyday responsibilities, and dealing with the difficulties that come with being famous. Over time, their relationship started to deteriorate despite their best efforts. The two of them decided to part ways in the middle of the 1980s. Both sides agreed that it was best, and the divorce was peaceful. Even though Robert was depressed, he had believed that their love would last forever, proving that a marriage could survive the pressures of being in the spotlight, even in Hollywood. Sometimes love, no matter how strong, is insufficient. Nevertheless, Robert had no animosity against Lola. Instead, he respected her, enjoyed the life they created together, and was proud of their children's achievements. They were delighted to see their children grow into strong, independent adults. Their separation was characterized by care, civility, and kindness, in contrast to many high-profile splits that were characterized by chaos and scandal. Robert's romantic life underwent several changes after his divorce. Although they were typically brief, he had romantic connections with a number of women. After they worked together on the film The Magro-Beanfield War, which Robert was responsible for directing, there were suspicions in 1987 that Robert was having an affair with Brazilian actress Sonia Braga. Although the rumors persisted, neither side bothered to confirm or reject the rumors. While filming Havana in the late 1990s, Robert got to know Swedish actress Lena Olin. Although they were connected outside of the movie set, their romance began to blossom by 1991. Their brief yet intense engagement gave his love life another fleeting episode. Robert was photographed with costume designer Kathy Orr in the mid-1990s. They appeared happy and at ease when they were in public. But soon after, when love arrived subtly, their relationship ended. Robert Redford was in a position where he had succeeded but still felt unfulfilled after being married for more than 20 years and going through a period of loneliness. He had a successful career and a well-respected reputation, yet he still yearned for a more intimate and genuine connection. Even though he was famous, he still longed for the safety and stability of a committed relationship. The idea of dating has always made him uneasy. It didn't appear to blend in well with his life. He felt uncomfortable discussing it, as though it were unfamiliar to him. But in 1996, things changed at his cherished Sundance Mountain Resort, a tranquil haven he founded in 1968 that reflected his love of the outdoors and was encircled by mountains and trees. He was enjoying the fruition of his Sundance dream when he casually met German artist and environmental activist Ceal Sagers while she was skiing. Their meeting was simple, devoid of any Hollywood glitz, simply two people bonding in the peace and quiet of the outdoors. The meeting was made much more memorable by Sybil's extraordinary candor. She acknowledged that she didn't know much about Robert's long career in movies. She was intrigued and viewed a few of his films, but only in short bursts. Nevertheless, she didn't need them to understand his actual nature. This novel viewpoint made it possible for Robert to be perceived as a normal and genuine person rather than merely a well-liked celebrity. A delicate relationship began to form from that moment. In a smooth and tranquil way, their bond became stronger. They didn't think it was necessary to publicly display their love. Rather, their love flourished in small gestures, walks together, deep conversations, and unwavering company. They talked a lot about their goals, art, and the natural world. They grew closer as a result of their shared concern for the environment, which gave their relationship more than just a personal meaning. After years of friendship, Robert and Sybil married in 2009 to cement their relationship. The ceremony was held in Hamburg, Germany, in a private and low-key setting. It was a silent demonstration of commitment rather than a grandiose occasion. Sybil created a happy and peaceful family by marrying Robert and became the stepmother to his daughters, Shauna and Amy. She was often described by Robert as the one who gave his life a fresh start. Her creative attitude, youthful energy, and European ancestry opened his eyes to a different way of seeing the world. She was more than simply a friend to him, she was a blessing who brought color and a fresh perspective to an otherwise experience-rich existence. Their friendship developed out of their shared values rather than a desire for fame. As vice president, Robert backed Sybil when she founded the Way of the Rain, an organization that aims to raise awareness of environmental issues, in 2015. With their hearts joined in the quest of a greater purpose, their collaboration proved that love has the capacity to affect positive change. But tragedy occurred when it came time to enjoy the greatest bits. Remain with us. An eternally bright farewell. Robert Redford began to pick his roles more carefully as the new millennium went on. He concentrated on stories that had meaning, even if they weren't always financially successful, rather than taking on every project. He starred in the 2000 film The Legend of Bagger Vance, which blended subtle grace with wisdom. A few years later, in 2007, he co-starred with Tom Cruise and Meryl Streep in Lions for Lambs as both director and actor. Even though the movie didn't receive much praise from critics, it showed his bravery in tackling contentious subjects like politics and war that many people avoided. He directed the 2011 movie The Conspirator, which followed the legal proceedings of Mary Sarratt, the sole female suspect in the terrible murder of President Abraham Lincoln. Soon after, in 2012, he released The Company UK, a story about an ex-extremist who lives undercover. Redford kept a balance between humor and provocative topics alongside actors like Julie Christie and Sheila LaBeouf. Then, in 2013, he stunned the world with an incredible show of talent. He portrayed a lone sailor battling the weather in the movie All Is Lost, dealing with both mental and physical difficulties. The character relied heavily on his gestures, facial expressions, and the impact of quiet rather than having many phrases. His acting's bravery shocked everyone, and rumors of possible honors started to circulate. This performance demonstrated that he still had the capacity to enthrall and evoke strong feelings in spite of his lengthy career in the field. But even the most amazing story cannot escape time's unrelenting passage. Global sorrow was sparked by the announcement of Robert Redford's passing on September 16, 2025. At the age of 89, he breathed his final breath in his loved house in Sundance, Utah. With the scenic mountains as his backdrop and the tranquility he cultivated around him, he bid a very last farewell. The declaration changed into tender but profound. A plea for solitude turned into position forth, however sorrow spread international like waves in the ocean. Supporters grieved, co-employees reminisced, and lovers skilled the gravity of not best dropping in character, but a time period. He transcended being simply an actor. He embodied a narrator, an idealist, a warrior for honesty and aesthetics. Tributes flooded in from various celebrities and public figures. Jane Fonda expressed her fondness even as Meyer Road praised his bravery. Amazing personalities like Barbara Streisand, Ron Howard, Mark Ruffalo, Morgan Freeman, Ben Stiller, Jamie Lee Curtis, and others highlighted his kindness and compassion. In addition to those inside the amusement enterprise, politicians like Hillary Clinton and authors like Stephen King additionally mentioned his effect, showing that his legacy prolonged past the area of movie and television. The media located it hard to convey his brilliance. Range credited him as the originator of indie movies through his established Order of the Sundance Institute. The Mom or Dad identified him as a great link among traditional cinema and the modern movement of the 70s. The Law instances praised him as an image of his era. And in France, he became venerated as a giant in American way of life. Irrespective of the language used, the consensus remained unchanged. Robert Redford had left a lasting impact now not just at the movie industry, but additionally on people's feelings. His eternal attraction did now not stem entirely from his appealing look or natural air of mystery. It stemmed from his readiness to tackle impactful roles. He confronted topics of wrongdoing, grief, unfairness, and human imperfections without delay, carrying each his actor and director hats. He aimed for movies to resonate long after viewers left the theater. This ambition solidified his popularity as one of the enduring icons of Hollywood. A figure who illuminated the industry for over 50 years. The passing of the individual is comparable to the very last bankruptcy of a loved novel that readers did not need to stop. Nonetheless, the legacy he has left behind is undying. He talented audiences with enduring movies, tricky personas, and a celebration that supports rising artists. Regardless of his departure, his inventive vision endures. Although Robert Redford's time on the stage has come to an cease, his have an effect on stays robust. No matter his absence, his creative, imaginative and prescient and dedication to his work function a supply of thought for plenty. Even though his voice is not heard, his effect lives on via his work, reminiscences, and the artists he has inspired. What commenced at Sundance will hold to resonate for years to come. Robert Redford's presence will always be felt inside the world of cinema. What do you consider Robert Redford? How do those newly discovered information impact his legacy? Percentage your thoughts within the remarks under. Bear in mind to love, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for extra engaging tales.